So I've been saying for quite a while now, you needed to wait till about 2 weeks after the debate and then see where everything was. And I was saying that before everything really went crazy. Let's just recap real quick where this race is, because in a lot of ways, we're right back where we started for the presidential race. So if you go back and listen and you really pay attention to the numbers here, there wasn't a big bump coming out of this debate. We're getting more and more polling now. And a lot of that +5 stuff for Harris doesn't look like it's holding up. It's back to being essentially tied. Now, I know national polling is showing Harris with a couple of point lead pretty uniformly across everybody. I'm going to repeat what I've been telling to anybody that will listen. I do it on commentary, whether I'm on TV, radio, whatever. National polling means absolutely nothing in this election. It means nothing. Ignore it. You can maybe get some trend line kind of applications out of it, but it just doesn't really matter. The battlegrounds matter. Remember, this is an electoral college election, not a popularity contest. And the 7 battlegrounds are what matter, and they're all essentially tied. And right now, this race is tied. And there's 2 things we need to know about that race being tied that we should really pay attention to here. One is that Trump's ceiling is real. No matter what he does, his ceiling is a real thing, and it's a little bit less than it's been. Trump fatigue is a real thing. We are now in season 9 of the Trump show as a national political thing. And you can tell, and you notice, people are getting worn out. And it's not the partisans, not the Democrats and the Republicans or the MAGA people or the hardcore progressives. Those aren't the folks that are getting tired of it. Part of the problem with Donald Trump is you're not allowed to be neutral. Take the recent Taylor Swift smack. Most Taylor Swift fans probably don't care about politics one way or the other, but if you attack Taylor Swift directly, they're going to get involved. Trump, and especially his surrogates and the ecosystem of media that's friendly to him that has sprouted up, they don't give you an option. You're not allowed to be neutral. You're all for Trump or you're evil, wicked, communist, socialist, blah, 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 blah. Go right on down the line. You've all heard it. We've all seen it. Even if you agree with Trump on 90% of the issues, if you divulge off the reservation on any one little thing, they will come for you. MAGA and the current iteration of the Republican Party does not do a good job of tolerating dissent. And part of the problem with that is when you get people that aren't super political, like moderates, like independent voters that swing elections, if you put their back against the wall, they're probably not going to go for you. They're going to go for whatever's against you, whether they like it or not, just out of spite. So the Trump ceiling, polling-wise at least, is very real. That brings us to Vice President Kamala Harris, though. She's underperforming. I'll say that again because some people in the back seem to be having problems with it. She's underperforming. She's underperforming what Joe Biden did previously. She's underperforming what a generic Democrat would do. And I know that I always ran about that number not meaning anything, but here there's a little bit of an application. She's underperforming. Now, she appears to be doing much better because of the circumstances involved. One of our core principles in doing these programs is things don't happen in a vacuum. They happen in a sequence. What's the sequence of events? Kamala Harris in the 2020 election didn't even get into the calendar year of the election she was seeking to win. Remember, it wasn't Republican voters that rejected her. It was Democratic primary voters and fundraising and donors and pundits and the people that make those decisions in the Democratic Party that found her wanting. Now, she became the vice president and has done, you can think what you want about the job she's done since then. And now she's the nominee. She's the nominee because Joe Biden had a catastrophic failure on live national television. That failure brought out a lot of the things people had worried about Joe Biden for a long time, going all the way back to the 2020 election, really, and some of the reasons that, and I was wrong about this, I didn't think he should have ran for president in the first place. Now, he ended up winning, but there was concerns about his age and things like that. And when we had the debate meltdown, it all came to a head. What happened with the Democratic Party was they went from utter despair and doom of Trump's going to win no matter what. Then Biden steps aside, Kamala Harris comes in, and now you went from doom to hope. So your viewpoint got skewed a little bit on how excited you are about the candidate. Now, to her credit, Kamala Harris has done what she should do as the Democratic nominee in such a circumstance. She has consolidated the Democratic base, the Biden coalition, if you will. Previously, that got him most of those people have come home to the Democratic Party now. But that's why this race is tied. Trump has a hard ceiling, and Kamala Harris has not sealed the deal with any voters outside of that base. Now, there's other commentary and there's other things you can pick from it, but that's the race right now. It's essentially tied. Now, there's 7 swing states. Trump has an advantage here, and I still think he's the favorite to win this, not because he's doing a great job. He's not. He's running a horrible campaign. His debate performance was terrible. J.D. Vance is an embarrassment, and he's not getting anybody outside of his own base. And in fact, a lot of the stuff they're doubling and tripling down on is going to further alienate any voter that wouldn't come from him. But Kamala Harris's job is not just to be not Trump. She has to get the people who were going to not vote to come out and vote. Just sitting at home isn't good enough for her because of the way the Electoral College works. And that's why I think Trump's still the favorite in this race as it sits today, the third week of September. There's those 7 swing states we talked about, the battleground states. Kamala Harris has to win probably 5 or 6 of them at least. Trump could probably win as few as 3 or 4 of them and still win the presidency. So he's the favorite. Now look at states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin. These are going to be really, really tough competitive races. Pennsylvania's virtually tied by any measure you could tell. There's some pie in the sky stuff where folks are talking about maybe Kamala Harris can get North Carolina. Mathematically, yes, Mark Robinson's top of the governor ticket. He might drag that ticket down a little bit with some of his buffoonery. But I think North Carolina might be a bit of a stretch. Now, if she wins North Carolina, she's probably going to be president because that means she's getting a little bit more of a push than just a tied election and breaks either way to pull a state like that. But those 7 battleground states is what you need to pay attention to. Turn out the noise of these news cycles going into these last 50 some odd days of this race. This is where we're at. The battleground polling and the battleground states is what you pay attention to, not the national. The national is going to bounce around. That's the popularity contest. It's the Electoral College that's going to put somebody in the White House, either Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris. So pay attention to that. But those are the 2 factors as I see them, just calling it as I see it. Trump is hitting his ceiling, which we knew he would do because his base is going to come out. And Kamala Harris is currently underperforming a little bit. Now, she can turn that underperforming to a winning ticket by convincing those independents and moderates and the undecided voters to come out and vote for her, or the disaffected Trump voters, or whatever you want to call the people in the middle. Remember, the turnout here is going to be very, very interesting. Joe Biden had the highest vote total in the history of America. Is Kamala Harris going to be able to replicate that or better it? Trump had the highest voter total he ever has. He vastly improved on 2016 and 2020. Is he going to increase his lead? These are things we're going to have to see. These are numbers to watch, not just the polling numbers and the averages. That's where this is going to be decided. So the 7 key battleground states, watch that. Pay attention to the 2 candidates where they're campaigning, where they're putting their efforts in, and then we'll see if there's going to be any more debates or not. Time's ticking. Time's running out. And then underneath all this, of course, we know just because we have an election day doesn't mean the election's over on that day. So pay close attention to things going on, especially in states like Georgia that decided the last election. And we know all the shenanigans that went on down there. They're going to be doing that stuff again. Pay attention to places like Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, because we're probably going to hear about this long after Election Day.
All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from monstercat.com.
Somos la máquina.